With the NFL season coming to a close somewhat soon, still got a couple playoff games left, it is time to start talking about the draft. Because for a lot of teams, that process has already started. Thinking about the draft, especially the Tennessee Titans, who will be picking first. And in their case, I think they almost have to go quarterback here. Couple of options. They do have Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, obviously. Not a great quarterback class. I do think it's a little overhated, to be honest. I do think Cam Ward and Shedeur can be very good NFL quarterbacks. Unlike some previous prospects in these last couple of years, unlike a Caleb Williams or Gene Daniels, they're a lot more dependent on the team they get drafted on, I think, or two, I think. They do need a lot, I wouldn't say a lot of development, but definitely more development than what we've seen from guys these past couple of drafts. There's necessarily a generational prospect at quarterback in this draft, but I still think the Titans almost have to do it with the way the way that position has gone for them this season with Will Levis and then Mason Rudolph, just not very good, very inconsistent. They could go with Abdul Carter. That's definitely a possibility. Do I see it happening? No. But who knows? If they do want to just go with the best athlete, which is definitely a possibility, they could go Travis Hunter too. But I do think they are just going to go quarterback, fill the most obvious need. And if you're the Tennessee Titans organization, it's the one thing you look for, just getting that position figured out. As a Patriots fan, that's kind of the one thing us Patriots fans can be excited about is the fact we have Drake May. So I think the Titans are looking to do something similar. Just obviously the team's in kind of a bad spot, so just figure out that quarterback position. I think they have a good chance to do so. And between Cam Ward and Shedeur, I do think Cam Ward is the better prospect at the moment. I'm actually very interested to see how the combine goes. I think they'll actually have a really big impact in this draft process, unlike some previous years where there's kind of like an obvious first round pick or first draft pick. Caleb Williams or Jane Daniels last year. I know that was obviously both really good prospects, but we all kind of knew who the first pick was going to be. And this year, it's not as much. I think most people would say it's Cam Ward, but I think it's closer than people think. And I do think Cam Ward is slightly better at the moment, but I do think it could go either way still if they do decide to go the quarterback route. They're both kind of similar in some ways, how they play the game. Both probably holding the ball too long. Shedeur definitely a little bit more. Shedeur definitely tries to do too much outside the pocket sometimes, takes unnecessary sacks. Cam Ward probably holds on the ball definitely too long as well, but definitely shows some flashes of greatness, especially Cam Ward with his playmaking abilities, and then Shedeur with his accuracy down the field and just some of the throws he makes when he actually has time to throw the ball. But right now I am going to go ahead and say that Cam Ward will be the first pick in the NFL draft this year by the Tennessee Titans. Again, I do think that can change. It'll be interesting to see how the Titans approach this. Because, again, they could just go best athlete, and then that would probably be Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter. But for now, I do think they try to address that quarterback position. And I do think there's two very good prospects, and after that, it's not as much. So if I can find... There he is, Cam Ward. That's the first overall pick. The next, we got the Cleveland Browns. Kind of a very similar situation here. They got talent on that team, Myles Garrett, Nick Chubb, and two-time Coach of the Year in Kevin Stefanski. But obviously a very bad year. Deshaun Watson going to be out probably the beginning of next year. Already missed a ton of time last year as well. So probably going to look to move on from him in this draft. And this is really where the draft begins, because we kind of know what the Titans will probably do, which is take a quarterback, but the Browns can do a lot of different things here. The Titans could theoretically take either Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter, but for the Browns, it's much more of a possibility because they do decide that hey, we're going to give Deshaun Watson a chance because, they paid him all that money, so they might as well. That could happen, or they could bring in a backup. Maybe they try to bring in, or not, maybe not a backup, but just a veteran in there, like a Sam Darnold. Pay him a lot of money, see if he can turn things around for them. I don't think they'll do that. I think they'll try to draft someone because they have this high pick, so they might as well. And I honestly don't think a lot of free agency quarterbacks are going to want to play in Cleveland at this point with their kind of history. But this is really where the draft begins, because assuming Tennessee does take a quarterback, Cleveland, they have a lot of different options. I've seen some mock drafts where it's Travis Hunter. I've seen some where they have Abdul Carter, which him and Myles Garrett would be a scary combination on defense. So that would make sense too. But I do think they are going to go quarterback, and I do think they draft Shedeur Sanders. Definitely a very real trade possibility too. Maybe the Raiders, if they really want to get their guy in this draft, especially if it's Ben Johnson who gets that job in Las Vegas, then I could see them trying to trade up for Shedeur, solve that need as quickly as possible. I'm not going to do trades in this mock draft, just makes things a little bit complicated. But I would not be shocked if Vegas try to make some sort of move. Could also see Dallas. That's a much, much more unlikely. But if Dion did somehow or some way get that Dallas job, then maybe, just maybe, they trade Dak Prescott and then use some of those picks to trade up and get Shedeur to have Dion and Shedeur on the same team in the NFL. Do I think that'll happen? Definitely not, but it's still a possibility if the Cowboys were to hire Dion, since he does want to coach his son, but I don't think it's going to happen. So maybe the Raiders trade up, maybe they don't. I do think Cleveland will probably, the most likely scenario is they just stay at number 2, take either Cam Ward or Shedeur, probably Shedeur, whoever's there. So I'm going to say that the Cleveland Browns get their quarterback of the future, or at least they hope he will be, in Shedeur Sanders, if I can find him. There is. The other thing I will say is I've also heard some people say that Shedeur is not a first-round draft pick, or he shouldn't be, and that's very silly to me. Just if you actually watch the games, it's very clear that he is a first-round pick, and if he were to somehow fall the first round, that would be a very big mistake for any team who didn't pick him in the first round, and I fully expect him to be a top 10 pick. I would be shocked if he wasn't, and he honestly does deserve to be a top 10 pick. So I do think this would be a good pick for the Browns. I don't think it's necessarily a reach. Again, it's not the deepest draft class ever, but still, I don't think that means Shedeur's not like a good quarterback or anything. He's definitely a good quarterback and definitely deserves to be a first round pick, and in my opinion, a top 5 pick with the situation the Browns have. And obviously Cam Ward, also very, very good. Heisman finalist for a reason. And then the Giants, both them and the Raiders desperately needed a quarterback, and just the way the draft is this year, there's really only 2 options, and they just kind of fall out of that range. So again, they'll probably try to get someone in free agency. Again, maybe like a Sam Darnold, although I doubt he would want to come back to New York. Maybe Kirk Cousins, Jameis Winston, just throwing out some names, but I doubt they try to, there's no way they take a quarterback here, just too much of a reach. So I do think they'll try to take best player available. In this case, it's not a bad idea. They got Malik Neighbors, who looks like he's going to be a superstar in the league. So I guess if you're Giants, you just got to be patient and wait for that franchise guy when he does arrive. But for now, I think they just take the best available. I'm not going to overcomplicate it. Travis Hunter, best player in college. One of the best Heisman winners, in my opinion, of all time. Just incredibly impressive both sides of the ball. I do think Travis will play corner mostly, then a little bit on offense, which is actually a really good fit for the Giants because, again, they don't really need that number 1 receiver. It's not really a need for them. But they do need help at cornerback. I think that's what he's better at, is cornerback. So I do think the Giants draft Travis Hunter with the 3rd pick. And the Patriots, again, as a Patriots fan, was hoping we get that 1st pick, could maybe trade it and get a lot of draft capital, a lot of potentially O-linemen in that situation, but probably not going to happen. And I could see them doing a lot of different things here. Trade is very likely. Just try to get more picks. Rebuild this team that is definitely not competing right now for much of anything. You got the franchise quarterback, so you could go receiver here with McMillan from Arizona. Arguably the best receiver in this draft, and I think he'll be very good in the league no matter where he goes. But I do think if you're the Patriots, you got to go O-line. As much as it is tempting to go with Abdul Carter, I think they do have to pass in this situation, just because you got to protect your franchise quarterback. I think that's going to be the top priority for Mike Vrabel and that new coaching staff. So I do think there's really two options at this stage of the draft. There's Will Campbell and Kelvin Banks. For now, I'm going to say Will Campbell. Again, I think this will come down to a lot of the combine and some, later in the draft process. I'd be interested to see how that develops. But for now, I do have Campbell as the slightly better prospect at the moment. Could definitely change. A lot of the stuff will change. But I do think the Patriots select Will Campbell to protect Drake May. Then the Jacksonville Jaguars, another team that has a lot of needs. But I don't think they're as hopeless as you may think. They got the franchise quarterback, obviously, in Trevor Lawrence. Etienne at running back still. Really, really good rookie season for Brian Thomas. Looks like he's going to be a superstar in the league. Him and Malik Neighbors have been incredible this season, just on very poor teams. The defense has some pieces as well. So this team isn't completely hopeless. I mean, obviously not a good year, but they get the right coach there, then good things could happen in Jacksonville. And they would have loved to get Travis Hunter at cornerback. Like I said, arguably the best cornerback in this draft class. You can make that argument. Probably him or Will Johnson, a few other contenders there. And I think the pick will be Will Johnson. They don't get Travis Hunter, who, again, maybe not the best cornerback, but definitely plus his wide receiver skills makes him just such an amazing prospect. But the Jaguars need a corner, and who up better than arguably the best in the entire draft class than Will Johnson here from Michigan. So I think that is going to be the pick here. Then the Raiders. I talked about them a little bit earlier. The Raiders are a really interesting team already this offseason. We've heard all the rumors about Ben Johnson going to Vegas. That'd be a very interesting hire. So, I mean, it's kind of funny looking at the needs right now. You can just look at them at your screen. Quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and cornerback. So basically just anything on the outside. On the perimeter, they need help. They have some good young pieces on that O-line. They have obviously Brock Bowers, who Rookie of the Year candidate, him and Jayden Daniels. Probably go to Jayden Daniels, but almost any other year could have gotten to him. Amazing season from Brock Bowers. Already one of the best, if not the best, already tight end in the NFL as a rookie. So a lot of good pieces to work with and good players to work with in Vegas. Max Crosby, obviously. So there's some talent on that Vegas team, but obviously it doesn't mean too much if you don't have a quarterback or a head coach, because they don't even have a head coach at the moment. But they obviously will by this point, and I do think they will try to sign someone in free agency. I think they'll try to trade up, honestly. I do think they'll try to get either Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders in the draft. I think they'll try to trade. I don't think it'll happen, though, because I think the Browns want to draft a quarterback. I think that's their plan, unless the Vegas makes a crazy offer, which they probably shouldn't be making. Then I don't think that'll happen. So I think they're smart. I think they just waited out another year, them in New York together. They just waited out, signed somebody, and go best player available. Maybe they could go Abdul Carter. Although with the wide receiver having just traded Devontae Adams, I do think they go with McMillan here. Again, Abdul Carter is probably the most interesting player in this draft to watch, because he could literally go from anywhere from 1 to 8, really, realistically. I don't think he'll go past the Panthers, but he could really be the first overall pick to anywhere to 8. Um, so he'll be really interesting player to watch in this draft. But I do think McMillan goes here to Vegas. Then the Jets. A lot of this will depend on what Aaron Rodgers does. He has a huge amount of influence and power on the team, obviously. So curious to see what happens with the Jets. I do think he'll probably end up retiring. That's just my opinion. I think he's going to retire at the end of the season. And so then they would obviously need a quarterback, but the Jets are not the most desired free agency destination for quarterbacks. Let's just say that at this point. So they'd probably try to trade up. I don't think that'll happen, though. They could try to reach for a quarterback at this point. I don't think they'll do that either. I think that would be just kind of silly with the talent available. So, again, probably just like I've said a couple times now, just sign somebody, trade for somebody, and wait till next year. Because, again, this quarterback class isn't super strong. Only really 2 guys I can really see starting day one in the NFL, or at least contributing meaningfully relatively soon. So, obviously, interior D-line is a need. And who better than Mason Graham? His Michigan teammate went a few picks earlier, so I think Mason Graham goes to the Jets here. Big game against Ohio State, pulled off that upset win, and I think that will help him get drafted to the New York Jets right here. And finally, I know I've been waiting and waiting for so long to make this pick, but Abdul Carter finally gets picked. I don't think he gets past Carolina. Again, they could go a couple different routes here. Ashton Jeanty still available. That's one notable name, but I really don't see him getting past this pick. All the other picks up until now, there's been another guy where it kind of fills the position in need or something like that. But I think Carolina here, the way the draft, the other players have gone at the moment, I think they go Abdul Carter here, who is arguably the best player in the draft class. I would say it's Travis Hunter, but you can definitely make that argument that it's him. In my opinion, he is the second best in the class, but obviously a great pick for the Panthers. They had an amazing end of the season. From where they were at the beginning is really incredible. They looked like, to be honest, a complete disaster at the beginning, and then just at the end to really put together some great wins. Won that game against Atlanta, which they had really no business winning. Atlanta really needed that game, and then they just found a way to win, stay in it when they really didn't need to. They kind of remind me of the Lions from a few years ago when they had a really rough start, then they kind of put it together at the end, showed a lot of promise. Jared Goff started to play well, and you can kind of see the same thing with Bryce Young. He had an amazing end of the year as well. He looks like the franchise guy. We were talking about, who they're going to draft at quarterback. Some of the early mock drafts, and now it's not even really consideration with how well he's been playing. So, Abdul Carter, Carolina Panther. New Orleans Saints. So this is kind of later stages of the draft now. So I'm going to go a little bit faster, just so I don't get too boring. So wide receiver, tight end, D-line, some key needs. Could go Ashton Jeanty, just get the best player at this point in the draft. But Luther Burden is available. I think that's where they go at this point. A great player. Missouri didn't have as great of years they probably would have liked. Had that big Cotton Bowl win against Ohio State just 2 years ago, right before this season, which is kind of hard to believe. But beat Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl, and then, kind of, wouldn't say fell apart, but it's not as good as a year as they would have hoped. But good thing for Missouri, get a top 10 pick here with Luther Burden to the New Orleans Saints. The Chicago Bears, they need a running back, and there's only a couple of generational running backs that really get to go in the top 10 these days. It's not often you see top 10 running back. The ones of recent memory are Saquon and Bijan Robinson, who both had obviously really good careers. And I think Ashton Jeanty adds his name to that list. I think he also becomes a rare top 10 running back in this day and age of the NFL. going to the Chicago Bears. So those are the first 10 picks in my 2025 NFL mock draft. I'll probably do a couple more of these, and I might do a full first round draft when the season actually ends, when the Super Bowl is over. So as always, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.